What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Tranquil Living Uruguay podcast. Today, I'm diving into the single most important thing you can do as a current or aspiring expat, which is da-da-da, networking. In this episode, I'm sharing real and practical details of how to network in Uruguay as a foreigner and why it's so important to your success here. So let's get into it. I touched a little bit on the last podcast I did about purchasing real estate in Uruguay as a foreigner, but I really wanted to emphasize how important it is to start developing connections and contacts ASAP. This happens from the moment you begin your research and your overall journey into moving to Uruguay or any new country that you have in mind. You don't know what you don't know, right? And when you begin your moving abroad journey, you need to start asking around, breaking into spaces and places that were unknown to you. And your network in Uruguay matters. It's the key to thriving abroad as a foreigner, not just in Uruguay, but anywhere else. The moment we began researching Uruguay, we found a lot of recent information that was being published by International Living at the time, which is a respected organization in the international community and basically like a well-known trusted source. So once we found them, we did a weekend online webinar, paid it was like at the end of 2020, it was like November 2020, about the lowdown on moving to Uruguay, getting residency, the move process, etc. And it was great because the videos were recorded and they provided a comprehensive guide on Uruguay called, it was like Uruguay Uncovered. And that document was great because it also included contact information for people such as like other American expats who were actually living in Uruguay. And they were part of the webinar. And so it was nice to kind of hear like directly from them. And after about a year into living here, we came across, this is a full story, we came across a labor issue with someone we had hired to build a deck for us. And he basically came, started the work, got about 10% through and never finished. So we ended up losing money in the whole ordeal and ended up with just a piece of slab that's like already falling apart. Unfortunately, there are bad apples out there, and being foreign doesn't help when you're in a new country. But through the workers, we found out that this guy wasn't just doing it to us because we're American, but he was actually doing it to other Uruguayans too. So we weren't necessarily singled out just for being Americans. We were unsure how to handle it all and like how to proceed in a situation like this. So we actually ended up reaching out to one of the contacts from that international living document that we had. And there were these expats with experience in construction, doing home construction here in Uruguay. And in that webinar, they had spoken about their home construction experience, what to do, what not to do, that kind of thing. And so since their contact information was provided, we reached out and they were so helpful to us and like recommended this lawyer who handles issues like these. And they recommended another like trusted like architect to come out, analyze the work that was being done, that had been done, the 10% of it. So this is an example of just like how important it is to start building your contacts, your contact lists in every single step of the moving abroad process, like from the very beginning and research and then throughout your overall journey. So it's important to know that networking abroad is not optional. Moving abroad in itself is just really daunting. There's so much information out there, so much to learn, or you just like don't really know where to begin. So you start Googling, watching videos on YouTube, listening to podcasts like this one, or now we're all chat GPTing everything. And looking back, for me, the most important skills you should have if you're in this moving abroad process or journey is one, curiosity. Always be curious and stay curious because there's just a lot of information, learning of new experiences that are just coming your way. And the second thing is bravery. Bravery to seek out help ask the questions, go to areas or places you may not have known about before, and then just doing it. So I know networking sounds like blah 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 boring, but when you've landed in a new country and like you don't know what you're getting yourself into, or you end up hitting a roadblock, you need to ask the questions, ask for the recommendations, or even ask for help, just general help sometimes. Um, so I recommend to start looking at networking as like survival for building your community and your village abroad. Every encounter, every single encounter is a moment for opportunity. And the reason I think this is so important is because staying or keeping yourself in isolation can just like quietly derail the whole expat life experience. And you don't want that. You want to thrive. You want to live, thrive, like it or love it. There may be some aspects you hate, but overall, just thrive. And so, as I discussed in my last podcast, we had, our real estate agent that we found. We just found her online, came across her, and she was bilingual, and she assisted us with getting that architectural inspection report for the house we purchased. She had contacts to just like help us get us through the whole home buying process. She also connected us to our immigration and relocation specialist, who that person then recommended us a notary, an insurance runner, an accountant, all very important people you're dealing with all year long as you're living abroad here in Uruguay. And yeah, there's this network there, right? They're all working together, probably getting commission off of referrals from one, to the other. But I can wholeheartedly say that I honestly wouldn't have known, where to begin without that. So I'm really grateful and thankful that, we did have those people to help. So I know some people go back and forth about whether they should hire an immigration or relocation specialist. And even if they speak Spanish, like, I really need this? But for us, it was 1,000% worth investing in the immigration and relocation specialist. So definitely do it. Networking is especially important in Uruguay. Uruguay's relationship-based culture, so like family, friends, childhood friends, they're all integral to like a local's daily life. Who you know matters more than like systems. And like locals will even tell you that it's all about who you know when it comes not just to jobs, but like practically everything. And then, from my experience, especially when it comes to work being done on your home. And, here there's not so much, as you're interacting, there's not so much as a need for transaction, but like there's an importance put like on the like relational, like the relational networking. And in general, I just think Uruguay is a great uh, culture. It has a great culture to integrate into just because of the people. Not only are they curious about you and like why you decided to come to Uruguay, but most people are genuinely willing to help. And it seems like it's ingrained into them and just part of their value system, which I appreciate here. Okay, so a little bit of story time. I knew when we moved to Uruguay, we'd need domestic help. I transitioned to becoming a stay-at-home mom at the time, and we were moving into a farmhouse with a large property. And domestic help here is common, and it's relatively doable economically. So in general, if you can afford domestic help here, like even like locals, like you have it. So when we first arrived to Uruguay, we stayed at Airbnbs for a month, waiting to close on our house. And those last 2 weeks, we had stayed in an Airbnb in Montevideo on the Rambla. And it was nice because this was like our first taste of the Montevideo like city and Rambla life. And when we checked in, the cleaner of the Airbnb greeted us and like welcomed us into the apartment, gave us the keys, showed us the code, yada yada yada. I had her phone number because we had to coordinate the arrival time. And after we checked out the Airbnb and moved into the house, I didn't really know where to begin or where to look for this domestic help that I knew I needed. I needed a cleaner initially, even to just do like a deep clean of our new house. And obviously, someone to stay with us for the long term. So I'm always really cautious of who I allow in my house and around my family, because, you just like hear horror stories of, your things being stolen and that kind of thing. And especially here as a foreigner, some people have had bad experiences with hiring domestic help. So I had read in these expat Facebook groups. um, I think primarily it's because like the labor laws here are really strict, and if you don't have a domestic worker registered in BPS, which is like their social security um, organization here, then like you may be due for a rude awakening in terms of like labor disputes and lawsuits. So, not knowing what to do at the time, I reached out to this Airbnb housekeeper. She seemed nice when we like first met at our check-in and the checkout when I returned the keys. And she's obviously responsible if the apartment owners of the Airbnb entrusted her with their property. And I figured like maybe she could give me a recommendation, or if she herself could come. The problem was that we live outside of Montevideo, about 40 minutes. And so because of like our location, she had like recommended a cleaning agency. I'd reached out to a couple, but like in the end, I can't remember exactly what happened, but in the end, she ended up coming for like a trial run at her house. And this lady has to take two buses from her home just to get to the nearest like populous town, like near her home. And so I pick her up at that town's Plaza Square and drive like it's like 8 minutes away from our house. So the trial run went well. She loved coming out to the countryside where we live because like she herself grew up in the countryside as a child growing up. So she stayed. And to this day, this lady, she's an angel. She's still with us. She's seen like our daughter grow up. She's become a staple in our lives because she comes once a week for 4 hours a day to help clean our home. And as the years pass, we come up on our anniversary of when we first met. We like fondly talk about how our situation came to be. She remembers my husband walking into the Airbnb with his guitar case. And she said she thought he was like some famous American musician, which is like far from it. And my husband plays the guitar well, but far from a famous American musician. And it's just a really funny story that we laugh about to this day. And it's great because she's not just like domestic help, but I have learned so much from this lady, just talking to her, chit chatting in regards to like Uruguay, cultural things like I didn't know about, like Uruguayan slang or customs. And she always like reminds me of when national holidays are, like the working and non-working holidays, as they call it here. And she gives me recommendations on places in like Montevideo. And she has just been, this domestic worker has just been she's become such a great resource for me and our family in so many ways. And she's never left. And it's been 5 years. So I'm really grateful and thankful. And I'm glad that um, I reached out to her when I did. What's important to know about Uruguay is that there's an app that everyone uses here called WhatsApp. You've probably heard of it. And this is usually the main form of communication with everyone, with your neighbors, the school itself, service or tradespeople, community groups you're involved in. And I mean, even to like my daughter's pediatrician, I can just text her or send her a voice message via WhatsApp, pictures if I have a question about like something going on. Even the dentist, the vet, if we ever have any issues with, our animals, I can just like kind of send a quick picture over to my vet and she can respond. instantly. And so just by having their number and connecting on WhatsApp, I kind of have direct access to all of these people, which I never had that in the US. That was not using WhatsApp to message people was just like not a thing there. So if you move here, you will be using WhatsApp. So keep that in mind. It's really important for communication, networking, everything. So let's see, some practical ways to network as a foreigner, I would say, is starting with your immediate environment, your neighbors, places you frequent, and like things of the like. Going to local events, classes, gyms, or like being part of a club or clubs. That's also really helpful. I grew up dancing and joined a dance studio where I've met and become close with local Uruguayans. Taking yoga classes have also helped as well. And basically, just doing the things you already like to do and finding a space and a place to do that while you're living abroad is super helpful. And having a school age kid really helped us get out and more involved with mixing and mingling with the locals in the community and the school. So that's also really helpful as well if you have kids. And then so just like building your network, and like these different groups and communities as you go is so important, especially like if you're asking for recommendations for people, places, and things. Uruguay is a really small country, and that's why the word of mouth just like works so well here. And if you want to meet or network with other foreigners here in Uruguay, there are groups that meet up, some more consistently than others. But there are plenty of Facebook groups for expats and foreigners living in Uruguay or wanting to move to Uruguay. You can get a lot of good information out of these groups, but it does kind of tend to be overwhelming at times and sometimes kind of catty. So just kind of like take everything with a grain of salt. I would say don't make the mistake of networking only with other foreigners or other expats. The locals here are just like truly wonderful, and they have so much to offer and so many things you can learn from them. And I mean, unless you really don't want to, I would say just like try to integrate as much as possible. I just think in the end, it really does make your living abroad experience like so much better and easier. And like I said, like integrating with my daughter's school and community and even like my dance studio, it's been so helpful and rewarding. My Spanish has gotten a lot better. I'm constantly kind of like learning new words, phrases, or slang that I didn't know about before. I just like recommend having the mindset of putting yourself out there. Even if you're not completely fluent in Spanish, just putting yourself in like in the situations and being comfortable. It's just in the end, it helps you grow. It really, really does. Like the networking will like lead you to like real success living abroad, and especially in terms of like I said, like finding trusted professionals, um, maybe like job opportunities, support during emergencies, like something can come up at any time. I know there was a situation where like my car got stuck in the mud here at our house, and I had to pick up my daughter, and so I needed help. A neighbor came over. So like emergencies and things are going to come up, and having like a network of people you can trust and like reach out to, like will help you feel like more rooted, um, to where you're living instead of kind of constantly being in like, okay, this is temporary. It's not temporary, when you make the move, like you moved. So you want to like set out your roots and spread your wings and keeping the contacts and communication is crucial to success here and thriving. So, like, the final takeaway is like building your community abroad does take time and patience. I've been here for 5 years, and but the reward is really great. Like when you move abroad, you're building a life for yourself and your family, and you're starting from scratch. It's not easy. I call, moving abroad like the road less traveled, because I mean, not many people are willing to start building a life from zero. Um, and it's when you move, it's not just a location, but it's your village that you build here and your community that really does get you through. And, the name of this podcast is called Tranquil Living Uruguay. And I just like wholeheartedly believe that tranquility just comes from, these great connections that you make. So, anyways, thank you so much for watching or listening to this podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. My goal for the Tranquil Living Uruguay is to be your passport to Uruguay, to provide as much value as possible for those that are curious about Uruguay, a place I call a hidden gem south of the equator. And whether you are traveling through or if you're an aspiring expat, I'll be sharing real life lived experiences from the perspective of an American Latina millennial expat. And remember, life abroad doesn't have to be perfect, but it should be tranquil. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you want more of this content, please like, follow, and send in your comments. I read them all. Cheers.